Hey guys, and welcome to Quality Shot. I'm super excited to be joined again by Gill Gross, and this is actually mainly, and Gill won't know this, but because of high demand from subscribers telling me, "Can you get Gill Gross on again? Can you get him on again?" And look, he's so happy. Exactly. So I said, "Okay, I wanted to have him on anyway. I knew he was busy, but I said, look, doesn't matter. I'll get him on. Better late than never." And of course, he'll give his expert view, and I'll try and keep up as always. How you doing, Gill?
I'm good, Faizan. Thank you. Thank you to you for having me on. Thank you for your subscribers for creating the movement and the action.
Yeah, exactly. There was so many comments. I did my review. It was just me, and they were like, "This is really good. We really like this video, but can you get Gill on?" And I was like, "Okay, that's fine. I'm not enough, basically now." But no, thanks for being on as always. So as you can tell, guys, we're going to be going over Wimbledon review. First of all, I mean, the first place to start obviously is Novak Djokovic, 20th Grand Slam. I know you talked about it as well in your roundup with Stephen Flink as well. Look, I mean, looked imperious. It's just 2020, we've got him, Nadal, Federer. Looks like he's probably going to be the favourite to finish on the most Grand Slams ever, we would assume. But there's all this new pressure on him now, and we saw a little bit of that, I guess, in the final against Berrettini. I don't think he played his best tennis. I thought he played probably B-level tennis, but he still managed to win it, which is a bit scary for the rest of the field. What did you think kind of generally about his overall tournament?
I'm just in awe of his ability to figure out ways to win matches with whatever he's got on a given day and just feeling out the opponents and what exactly is going to give them trouble and just being able to execute every tactic and every game plan. Because I agree with you. You know, he just didn't. There were some parts of his game that were not clicking at the end of that tournament, but he was leaning on other things that he does do very well. And let's face it, he's that much better than Berrettini. As good as Berrettini is, Djokovic's B game, you know, he's enough levels above Berrettini where his B game is going to be able to get it done. I also think that it's completely understandable that Novak was less than his best, because I really do think it was just because of the weight of the history and the pressure of basically what he was on the verge of accomplishing. Just tying up number 20, and I think it would have been easier for him to deal with those nerves if he was playing, let's say, like a Nadal, where I think people would be kind of going into it and maybe expecting that it might be able to go either way. But Djokovic comes into these matches the favorite to make history, and that's a lot on his shoulders. So he just looked a little bit tight, I think, for most of the match, probably until the fourth set in the final. But he can lean on things like his movement and his defense, his return, and in this case, his volleying was really a huge part of his game as well. He can lean on those things despite being tight. It just wasn't the he wasn't hitting a lot of winners from the baseline in the back of the court, and wasn't going for a lot of risk on those shots because he just wasn't loose enough to do it. But he got the errors down. So it was everyone feels nerves, right? Every tennis player feels nerves. It's just how you manage them. And Novak managed them beautifully in this.
Yeah, I agree. I think the internet cut a little bit there, but it's fine. I'm assuming you're not going to sound like a robot. It'll sort out, I'm sure. I'm sure it'll sort out. But it's probably in the hotel room. Well, without your, I know you've got your amazing Monday match analysis set up normally. But yeah, I agree with you 100%. Like Novak, the volleying, I know you mentioned that obviously in Wimbledon, volleying was kind of a big thing for you. And then in, what was it, the French Open, you know, he was just really dominant kind of in terms of his movement. And then at the Australian Open, his serving was really astounding for the most part. And that kind of was definitely an improvement. And I think in the French, he was crushing the ball a lot better. It was a lot cleaner. And he looked a lot better from the baseline. So I completely agree with you. And it's just so amazing, as you said, like you're almost in awe of someone who has managed to win not really playing their best, and it just shows what level these guys are at, being on 20 slams each. They know what it takes to win a Grand Slam without playing your best, whereas before it was, okay, can we you have to win a Grand Slam by playing to your top kind of ultimate level, like optimum level even. But now these guys don't need to do that because they know how to manage points, how to manage games, how to manage matches, and they do it really well. And I think that showed, I guess, against Shapovalov, for example, where Shapovalov had a lot of chances and didn't have that game management, whereas Djokovic does have that. And Djokovic admitted after, I probably didn't play the better tennis, but in the bigger moments he did play the best in those bigger moments and kind of managed to manage them a lot better. What do you think going forward then? Because obviously there was a little bit of pressure on him being, I guess, on 19 slams, and probably in the back of his head he was thinking, if I get to 20, this is it. This is the first time I'm actually going to be able to tie with these guys. I was always chasing. Now, he's always come across as someone who is an incredible chaser. What's he going to do now with a thought in his head that, okay, actually going forward, I have this added pressure. I'm expected to finish on the most. I'm pretty sure everyone in the tennis world is expecting him to, whether you're a Nadal fan, a Federer fan, whatever fan, just a fan of tennis. Everyone, I think, expects him to finish on the most now. What do you think? Is that going to add? That surely has to add a lot more pressure.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he's going to feel more pressure. And I mean, let's say he's in the U.S. Open final and he's at 20, going for 21. It's really hard to say if that's going to be a situation where it's going to be even worse than Wimbledon or better. I tend to think he might feel a little bit less pressure. I mean, he's on equal footing. If he lost, he'd still be tied and he'd get another crack at it. I felt, again, it's hard to predict just how he's going to internalize this kind of thing. But I think after what we saw at Wimbledon with him, I think being pretty nervous about it, it might relax him just being able to tie the record. But it's just amazing. Even if it doesn't again, it's like when's the last time Novak has lost a match and we felt like, oh, I should have won that one. He had the better tennis. He was the better player. He just didn't get it done. I mean, I don't know. There's some final against Team in 2019 at Roland Garros, which I thought was maybe a match he should have won, but that's the only match in the last 3-4 years that I can remember that it really felt like Djokovic should have had it. Didn't. He's just the ultimate. Again, when it comes to managing the moment, there's no one better than him.
Yeah, I agree. There's definitely no one better at managing the pressure, I think. And it shows, right? Because he almost feeds off the negative energy of a crowd. I think it does in the back. It does a little bit kind of get on his nerves when someone's, cheering for the other player. But he almost takes it as motivation to say, I'm going to prove to you guys that you should be cheering for me and I deserve your respect. And look, there were definitely moments even in that final, right, where I think he thought, look, the crowd should be with me. I'm the champion here, right? I've won here how many times, and you guys are still against me. I guess let's move on then to the rest of the field in terms of for Wimbledon. Berrettini, obviously, huge server, huge forehand as well. Obviously, look, I mean, it was always going to be a very different match playing Novak, considering I think the average rank of player that he'd played before Novak was 67 in this grass court season. So yes, he went into it 11-0. And I think actually it might be new that said that the rank of 67 average. But he went into the final 11-0, obviously on grass. So obviously had that form and confidence. And grass does seem to suit that game, even though it's not as quick maybe as it was back in the day. It's still quick enough that it will reward big servers who are hitting their spots like him. And the forehand's there. So I think it's very unfair of anyone to call him a serve, but he's not. He's a lot more than that. But the backhand slice is decent. Top spin backhand, even is still, I think, a work in progress. And I felt like Novak was able to access that and really make him pay. And he's one of those guys, Novak, that he'll find your pressure point and he'll just squeeze. And that's what he did. And it was almost like Boris Becker, actually, was doing the comm, said, we're almost seeing the Novak who first started winning majors, where he just used to grind it out. And when he's not really got that form, but he will make you make mistakes, and he'll be that counter puncher. And that's kind of what he was doing with Berrettini. And Berrettini, again, had a few opportunities, but just wasn't able to quite piece it together. What were your thoughts on Berrettini? Were you surprised me in the final? And were you impressed as well with his overall campaign?
Yeah, I wasn't surprised that he made the final. I knew that with that serve and that forehand, and the way he protects the backhand a little bit better on the grass using the slice, I knew he would have a chance. I think if he had to face Zverev, it would have been tricky for him if Zverev didn't serve 15 double faults or more. I think that would have been a tricky match for him, but he didn't have to. And I think Berrettini right now, if he just stays the same and doesn't make certain improvements, he can have a career similar to like Milos Raonic, and he can make some slam finals. And I think if things kind of shake out correctly for him, which they never did for Raonic, he can win a couple of major titles. But to take it to the next level, there's certainly some things I think he needs to do. It's been frustrating me the way he's returned second serves against most opponents for the most part. He's very passive, and he needs to be a player who is attacking. And if a right-hander kicks it up high to his backhand, first of all, he accepts the backhand. And aggressive players like Federer and let's say, even like a Dominic Thiem or someone like Jan Lennard Struff or John Isner, aggressive players want to play offense, doesn't matter the level. They will, in a big moment, skip around the backhand side and rip a forehand. Now you got to pick your spots there, but every once in a while you should do that. Use that forehand, and he doesn't. He always accepts the backhand, and he doesn't get much on it. I would just like to see him be a little more aggressive. Maybe slice it. That's what if I were his coach, I would have told him against Djokovic to slice the backhand return on the second serve. Maybe come in behind it sometimes, but you have to do some things there, and he doesn't. He just starts the point on his second serve return. Obviously, the backhand is a bit of a hole, but ultimately, I really think that he needs to. He's never going to be the best mover. He's never going to have the best backhand. So he needs to just stand his front foot and be an attacking player. And in order to do that, you got to stay ahead in the point. So that means return better and continue to serve as well as he serves.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's interesting you said about his return of serve and that it's a little bit passive, I think. And I agree it is. And it's something that he needs to be definitely more proactive on. And it's interesting the slice tactic, I think, on grass is not a bad tactic, is it, to kind of come in behind, especially slicing into even the forehand of Djokovic at times. When you slice deep and it skips off on the grass, sometimes when he hits a forehand, he looks slightly unbalanced, which is a weird word to associate with Novak Djokovic. But he'll most of the time he will hit the forehand okay, but it's like his body. It's like he's thinking, "Oh, hold on, this is kind of kicked up on me," and his forehand. I don't know how to describe it. I need a picture of it probably, but he does look a bit uncomfortable.
I agree.
Yeah, in those moments. So I think it's definitely a tactic that you have to use. You can't play at one pace against him. So maybe something that Berrettini will look at going forward. The rest of the field. I mean, I had the pleasure of actually going to the quarterfinals. So I watched Khachanov versus Shapovalov, which is a great match, 5-setter, and Orga Lesiam against Berrettini, which is a 4-setter, and also day 2, which was Zverev against I've forgotten his name now, the Dutch player who's decent, Griekspoor, and also Jelena Struff, who's a fantastic player against Medvedev. Struff got a terrible draw there, and Kerber as well. I saw her, and the best match of all, Kyrgios Humbert, which was fantastic. So managed to watch that and got that on. So sorry, I'm just bragging about that.
No, that's awesome. I mean, you saw some good matches.
Yeah, I think I was a bit fortunate. I don't live too far from Wimbledon, so it was great. It was really good fun. But watching them, I mean, the athleticism that these guys have, it is insane. It really is. And it's funny you talk about Zverev and the double faulting. And luckily, I watched him when he wasn't really having those yips. But when I then watched that match against Orga Lesiam, you just think, oh man, it's coming back. There was a big contingent, though, of Canadian players. Well, I say big, of 2, Orga Lesiam and Shapovalov. And I felt like this was a little bit of a breakthrough tournament for both of them, especially Shapo. And Orga Lesiam, I think as you said, not super impressive against Zverev, but he got the job done. And yes, Zverev wasn't his best, but he still had to get the win. What did you think of both their performances? And I guess it holds them in pretty good stead going forward now.
Yeah, for sure. I think both of them, they don't have their issue is repeatability. Repeat. And on grass, you don't really need to. It's not really about that. One or two great shots wins you the point. That's it. Good serve, good forehand wins you the point. And I think they benefited from going for bigger targets on their ground strokes, being helped by the grass. Where on clay, you probably need to play it a little bit closer to the line if you're really going to finish the points. So it just really helped them out in a lot of ways. And it's funny that you're able to lump the Canadians together, but they do play such similar styles and they do have similar strengths and weaknesses. And it's all about, for both of them, keeping the ball in the court because they have so much firepower. It's good to see Felix really figuring out his second serve. The double faults have vanished from his game for the most part. But yeah, I think Shapovalov was, I was extra impressed with him, even more than FAA. Big step for Felix to go as far as he did. But in terms of level, yeah, I think Shapovalov is starting to really understand where his targets should be and what he needs to do with his shot selection. I think his footwork has improved over the years. And it's also very important that he makes a decent percentage of his first serves, which he's beginning to do. And there is a large part of his career where he tended to serve around 50%. And it wasn't quite good enough for him. He still has the toss issues, and the toss is still pretty erratic, but he's making a high percentage. I don't know how much he'll be able to keep it up, but it's a great time for him to peak because he's heading onto surfaces that he obviously grew up on and really enjoys. And I really love the slow, hard court conditions of the U.S. Open. So I really do think Shapovalov can be a threat there. With that being said, I think the expectation for his career should always be that there's going to be highs and lows. He's not going to be the most consistent player. So the key for him is to just keep kind of an even mindset about his career because he's not going to make it out of the third round every single tournament. I don't think he's really going to be that guy, but he's going to have those big explosive runs where he looks impressive and he looks great.
This might not be the best comparison, but you talking about that almost makes you think of a left-handed Stan Wawrinka almost, in the sense that he can go on these runs. He's so explosive, and when Stan is on, he's red hot. And I feel like Shapo has a similar thing. Obviously, slightly different games, but I completely agree with you. Shapovalov is ultra aggressive for the most part, but that's just the way he plays. And if you take that away, you take away the kind of part of his game and what makes his game so great. Obviously, he might cut some non-forced errors, but then you just make him like one of those other players. So I think that's what makes him stand out. But the serve, I was watching it live and I was just thinking, this guy is serving like bullets. I mean, it's just incredible. Rockets at times. I think he got up to 138 miles an hour, which is pretty rapid considering that's kind of around the speeds of Matteo Berrettini. And it's something that I completely agree with you as a toss because I know it was slightly windy on that day in the quarters, but he's tossed. There's quite a few occasions where he just threw it up and just stopped and was like, sorry. There's a couple of breaks and you could tell he was really struggling with it. But it's interesting. The backhand has improved a lot though. I know that was really erratic before and it's become a bit more consistent and he definitely seemed to be a bit more comfortable with that. So that's good as well. And FA against, I know obviously he lost against Berrettini. I was there, but I think he again big server. The one thing that I kind of was not super impressed with at the start of the tournament was he wasn't really hitting through his ground strokes. Then I noticed as the tournament went on, he grew in confidence and started to do so, and that was a lot more impressive. Against Aryna, he had some issues, and Aymer's not a terrible player, he's a decent player, but you expect him to get through there a bit more easy
for sure
than he did. So that was impressive as well. But for the Americans, right? I mean, Sebastian Korda, he looks very, very good. And I watched the Khachanov match, not live, but live on TV. And Kachanov obviously got through that in the end, but Korda had a lot of chances, and obviously beating our home favourite, Dan Evans, who was a bit upset after. But Korda is very, very talented and seems to have a game for all surfaces. It's funny, like, I feel like he, again, it's not so offending the Americans, but I feel like he's got quite a European game in the way that he plays. If you look at the way that he hits the ball and kind of the technique that he has, what's the kind of temperature like around Korda in America? Is this the kind of the next big hope for American tennis?
Yeah, I don't think he has not penetrated the mainstream yet. I don't think my friends who don't watch tennis really know about him yet, but I think they will. And I think part of that is he doesn't have the biggest personality, which I think is fine because I think it's going to be a good contrast with Jenson Brooksby, actually. Jenson Brooksby is kind of the opposite of Korda. He's fire. Sebastian is ice, and I think that'll be kind of the next gen of American men's tennis. But for Korda, I really would be stunned if he didn't have a career in the top 10 at some point. And I know that was said at times about like a Donald Young. That was said about Francis Tiafoe. But I really would think that Korda is not going to be like that because there's so few holes in his game. He's so extremely complete. He has some slight nitpicks that you can take. Like his serve isn't that big. It's not really big enough, but his technique is good. I think he gets bigger. He gets stronger. A couple more years on tour, that serve is going to get bigger. The movement is good for his size. But he's so even off both wings. And look, the meat and potatoes of tennis, of course, is just how well do you hit your forehand and how well do you hit your backhand. And he's so clean technically off both sides, strikes the ball incredible with incredible cleanliness and has great depth and has really, really easy power and keeps the ball on the court very nicely, especially his backhand. His backhand is a special shot. So I think it's the total package, and there's clear things that I think he'll get better. I have high hopes for him.
Yeah, I agree. I think he does at the total package. He looks like he doesn't really have too many holes in his games. There's obviously tweaks that can be made, and I think you can see that. And some of it will be the mental side of things because he had chances, for example, in that fifth set against Kachanov, and maybe got a little bit frustrated, started, shouting at his corner, and they'll probably be thinking, okay, just kind of get on with it. And I guess
it's hard though. It's hard to get him in that place. That was the first time I saw him really start to lose it a little bit.
Yeah. As you said, he's normally a cool, calm, collected customer, but I think he's still very young, so I think there's still a long way to go. And something that he did actually, which I thought was very mature, was he didn't play. I think it was the French Open, if I'm not mistaken, or was it the Australian Open? Where it was the French, I think. He said he wouldn't play it because he thought he probably wouldn't have a good chance of winning it, and he wanted to play like 250 tournaments instead.
Yeah, it was Australia, and it paid off because he won. He didn't win. He made the final in Delray.
In Delray Beach, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sorry, thanks for that. But yeah, and I think from there, obviously, he's got those experiences, and that was a level of maturity, I think, that a lot of players wouldn't have, and kind of honesty in his game that I need to improve my game. So let me work on it for a few more months before I kind of hit the rest of the tour. So that was quite impressive, I thought, personally. In terms of kind of the rest then, I mean, obviously we had the huge upset of Tsitsipas, but I think that wasn't a huge upset in the sense that probably grass's weakest surface, I think we can probably safely say. And I know that he's had, unfortunately, his grandmother passed away. He was very close with her. He hadn't played any tennis beforehand. I mean, a lot of people are saying, and, I said this in my review, that, look, I think grass is probably the one surface, and Wimbledon, that I was least surprised of Djokovic winning, just because I felt like the others, not that the others are not capable, but because of the kind of lack of kind of match practice on grass, given that Wimbledon was missed last year, and these guys are younger coming through as well. They're not as in tuned on the surface. Got a bit of flack from some of the Djokovic supporters because they thought I was downplaying his achievements, but it wasn't that. It's just to say that I think that, for example, when he goes to the US, I think it's going to be slightly tougher given that a lot of these guys have grown up on the surface and also are more accustomed to it. I mean, are you of that same thinking kind of when you're watching Wimbledon that you thought that he was a very heavy favorite?
Yeah, I agree. I call grass Djokovic post 2018 Djokovic's best surface. I said it was grass, and I got pushed back on that. No, it's hard court. I guess it does feel like the distance, the gap between him and everyone else on grass is larger, regardless of if it's his best surface or not. His comfort level moving and what his return does to the big servers on the surface, and the way his ball rips through the court with his flatter hitting, I think, again, it just feels like he's a heavier favorite at Wimbledon than he is at the U.S. Open. There are guys like Daniil, Medvedev, Tsitsipas, Zverev, I'd say. They're all going to be, I think, more threatening. Dominic Thiem for sure, and if he can find his form, that's a big factor because we shouldn't forget that Dominic Thiem at his best is really right up there at the moment.
But he actually exists because he's not always injured. So hopefully he'll be back.
Exactly. I mean, look, 2021 has been a total bust for him, but if he can build some momentum towards the U.S. Open, that's the player who's had more success against Novak recently than anyone else. So
and he's a champion, isn't he? He's the champion as well.
Right, he's the defending champion. So all of these players, they are just less. They're not as big of factors at Wimbledon as they are at the U.S. Open, so it will be tougher. And regardless of if hard court is Djokovic's best surface, it's the field's best surface as well.
Yeah, agreed. I think very well put. Hopefully, I won't get flack for that. Catching up on her catch.
I'll take it.
Catching up on her catch. Obviously, they're the two players that again had a bit of a breakthrough making the semis, which was impressive. I thought. For sure. What do you think of their performances? I guess this Wimbledon, and do you think, like Hakac? I think a lot of people have been saying that he is obviously winning Miami, and a lot of people thought he probably should already be a top 10 player, and he's got all the tools. Kachanov has been kind of there or thereabouts, but hasn't really had a breakthrough tournament. Can these two be threats now going forward into the slams, or is it more? Okay, you've done pretty well, but we don't expect you to be in the quarter semis kind of every slam.
Yeah. Well, I'll start with Hurkacz. I'm not. I love him on grass. The style of tennis he was playing, I really, really enjoyed. The way he was taking the ball early, changing direction, and coming forward. And that has kind of always been the X factor with Hubie is just how much is he coming in, because his hands are super good. His volleys are great. But that's where the offense needs to come from, because his ground strokes, they aren't as big as you'd think for a 6'5" guy. He doesn't have massive power, so he really does need to come in to finish the points. It's just sometimes on the other surfaces or just in general, he's not coming in. He's not moving forward, and he's a beatable player. If he's playing that kind of style. So the question is this going to be a turning point? Is Wimbledon going to be a turning point for him? And is he going to start to play that style of tennis? Because I don't know, it took a 6 or 7 match losing streak for that to click. And he was down against Medvedev until he started to really to do that on a regular basis and start really spamming the net approaches. So I don't know. Like, I think he's for sure going to have a great career. He's going to be in the top 20 for a very long time. But I don't put him in the same tier right now as Medvedev, Zverev, Tsitsipas, even Rublev, Shapovalov. I don't have him really in that tier. So we'll have to see how he develops. Khachanov, I was really encouraged by his tournament. He is serving a lot bigger. His forehand is misfiring less. but I really point to the serve more than anything because he just wasn't serving as big as he needs to for a while. And I don't know if it was injury related because it was puzzling to me and I didn't really understand why it was happening. But I thought he played great. Again, I think his game lacks a little bit of special sauce, a little bit of variety, a little bit of weaponry after the serve. You can still rush him on the forehand side a little bit. So, he's been very consistent at the slams. I just don't think he'll ever be able to break through the final weekend at any point in his career. But I think he's going to be kind of omnipresent on the tour. And I think he'll be a real, what's the word? It's a player who is a gatekeeper. I think he's going to be a real gatekeeper for the top of the game, where it's like, okay, if you want to go deep in a slam, you're going to have to get through a player like Karen Khachanov in the round of 16 or the quarterfinal, and he's going to be there consistently for a very long time. But I really was impressed by him. If he keeps playing like that, he's really gonna do well for himself and go deep in a lot of majors.
Yeah, agreed. I feel like he's solid without being spectacular, as you said. I agree 100%. He seems to lack that little bit of kind of extra, something special. I think, as you said, special sauce. I like that. The spamming the net as well for a catch was great. Very good, Gill. I like that a lot. The spamming. I'm gonna use that. Sorry, I was even there for the match, and I said that Khachanov made the semis. He obviously went out in the quarters to Shapovalov. I was there at the match. I can't forget. But yeah, Khachanov obviously made the semis in the end. So yeah, I agree 100%. And it'll be interesting to see whether Khachanov does employ those tactics on surfaces which are probably not as, I guess, you're not as used to seeing people coming into the net like that, like he did on the grass. So let's see how that goes. Overall, though, I thought a pretty good tournament, but predictable in the end. If I had to ask you then a couple of questions, put you on the spot. If I had to ask you who you thought had a breakthrough tournament, if you had to pick one player, who would you pick?
Shapovalov, because he was so. Not only did he make the semis, he did so in real dominant fashion. He beat last year's semifinalist Roberto Bautista Agut, and it was like he wiped the floor with him.
It's carnage, wasn't it?
Yeah. So, and then I think he beat a very good version of Karen Khachanov. I mean, I think, like, you'd agree. I left that match impressed with not just Shapovalov. I left the match impressed with Khachanov. I thought he 100%. Really delivered. Yeah.
The crowd really appreciated it, including me. I think he played really, really well. So that was, I agree.
Yeah, so it would have to be Shapovalov for me.
Yeah, I think, and I was about to say he got so close to being Djokovic, but he still lost in the straights, but he had his chances, and I thought he played very impressively in that for the majority of the match. Chapo agreed. What about upset of the tournament? What were you surprised about the most in terms of someone getting dumped out?
I mean, that's an interesting one. Yeah, I mean, I can't say Tsitsipas. It wasn't the biggest shocker, in my opinion. I mean, I didn't see the Zverev. I didn't see Felix beating Zverev just after, again, the Emer match which you referred to. I definitely didn't see that one coming. Obviously, in terms of how big an upset it wasn't like this, like, that classic like first or second round upset where you have two seeded players who are both highly capable. Felix been to 7 finals in his career, but still, I thought that was pretty major, and I thought that did alter the course of the tournament. I think we could have had a very different tournament if Zverev kept it and held it together and didn't have that kind of performance.
Yeah, I think in terms of form, it was a weird one because I felt like Zverev was on the ascendancy and looked very, very strong, and then he just suddenly he was 4-2 up in both those first 2 sets and just threw it away, which was bizarre. Thanks, Gill, for being on in terms of talking about Wimbledon. Is there anything that you want to discuss before we wrap up?
No, I think we hit it all.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, guys. Of course, if you haven't already, which I'm sure you have, because everyone says they want Gill to be on the show, so I'm sure all my subscribers are already subscribed to your channel. But if not, please go over to Gill Gross on YouTube, go and subscribe to his channel, and also he'll be on all the best podcast platforms as well. If you do want to subscribe to his, or is it follow his podcast? I think it might be as well. So do go and check out and support him.
You follow on Spotify, you subscribe on Apple.
Okay, fine. Okay, right. I see. Not confusing at all. And also, of course, he's on 3 A Tennis Podcast as well. So go and check that out as well if you haven't already. Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks so much for having me on, Faizan.
No worries.